While sharing a heartwarming dinner with my son, I discovered an incredible secret. Leave now. Ethan stirred the pot of bubbling spaghetti, steam curling up like a warm embrace. The familiar aroma filled their cozy Maplewood home, wrapping around him and Max like a favorite blanket. It was their tradition every Friday night, just the two of them, sharing laughter and stories while the world outside hummed with life. Family was everything to him. He had sacrificed so much for Max, and in every twinkle of the teenage boy's eyes, Ethan saw the reflection of his own dreams come true. "Dad, did you hear about the soccer game? You've got to come watch me play next week," Max said, balancing a forkful of spaghetti on the edge of his plate. Ethan couldn't help but smile. His heart swelled with pride. "Absolutely, champ. Just to cheer on the best player in the league." Max laughed, and their voices danced together in the warmth of the room. But then an unexpected sound, a soft, ominous scratch against the door. Ethan froze. He walked over and bent down to pick up the envelope that had been pushed through the crack. His heart dropped. The words inside were cold, harsh. "A local developer plans to bulldoze your neighborhood for a luxury housing project." At first he dismissed it as a bad joke, a prank. Not in Maplewood. Not here. But as the evening wore on, the words lingered in the back of his mind, creeping in like shadows, obscuring the flickering light of their happiness. "Dad, maybe this letter is real. We can't just ignore it." Max's voice quivered with urgency, shaking Ethan from his thoughts. "If they can come for our homes, what's next? We've got to do something." Ethan was torn. He wanted to protect Max from the realities of the world, the weight of it all. Yet, the fire in his son's eyes sparked something deep within resolve. Together they dove into the plans, unearthing the corruption woven into the fabric of their community, the collusion that threatened their very lives. "Leave now." The words became their rallying cry, echoing off the walls of the neighborhood. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Ethan felt the weight of his father's sacrifices forging a path for him, igniting a passion he thought long buried. They gathered neighbors, friends, and strangers, forming a united front against the impending darkness. The thought of standing at the town hall meeting sent a thrill of anxiety and determination coursing through him. Would they see him merely as a struggling single dad? Or would they realize that his love for Max and for their home was fierce enough to move mountains? At the podium he stood still, hands trembling, heart pounding. Around him the audience held their breath. A twinge of skepticism passed through the room, but he cleared his throat, ready to shake their doubts. With each word he spoke he could feel the air thickening with hope, igniting something in those who listened. But just when it seemed they might spark a real change, a revelation, a truth that could shatter everything they believed in, lurked in the darkness. As whispers circulated, Ethan's resolve deepened. The fight was far from over, and the future of their community hung in the balance. The town hall was packed. Ethan couldn't believe the number of faces staring back at him. There were young families, elderly neighbors, and even a couple of lifelong friends. All of them had come to fight for their homes, their lives. A mix of hope and fear danced in the air. He inhaled deeply, reminding himself why he was there. Max was in the front row, his gaze steady and unwavering, reflecting the same determination that had brought them all together. Ethan began to speak, his voice shaky yet resolute. "We are here tonight because our homes are under threat." The murmurs grew louder. "We've received a letter stating that a developer plans to destroy our neighborhood." The crowd leaned in, whispers turning to gasps. Their eyes widened, fear creeping in like an unwelcome guest. "What do we want?" A woman in the back shouted. "We want our homes." "And what do we want to do?" Ethan called back. The energy shifted as others began to chant, their voices rising in unity against an unseen enemy. The raw energy of the room surged through him, filling him with strength. "We want to fight," they shouted back, igniting that same fire he'd seen in Max. The enthusiasm powered through his words, but doubt flickered in the corners of his mind. What if their efforts were in vain? What if the voices of the people weren't enough? Yet, as he looked at Max, he felt the weight of the decision grow heavy. This wasn't just about a house, it was about a home, a place filled with memories and love. If we don't stand together, we will lose not just our houses but our sense of community. Suddenly, a stern figure rose from the back of the room. The mayor, Mr. Caldwell, adjusted his glasses, taking his time before addressing the crowd. Let us not get ahead of ourselves, he warned. We have to consider the economics. Those houses have no value beyond what their foundation stands on. Luxury is what this town needs to prosper. Anger rippled through the room, palpable and heated. We're not against progress, but not at the expense of our homes. Ethan shouted, the urgency bubbling over in his chest. Each face in the crowd mirrored his emotions: fear, anger, and a flicker of hope. Max stood up, his voice a beacon of youthful passion. Mr. Caldwell, my dad has worked hard for this community. We all have. We can't just watch as it crumbles for a shiny facade. The mayor faltered for a moment, caught off guard by the passion of a teenager. Ethan felt pride swell within him, but it was tempered with anxiety. This confrontation could turn ugly. Max, sit down, Ethan urged quietly, but there was a fire in Max's eyes that he couldn't extinguish. We don't back down, Max declared, shaking his head defiantly. We're not just residents, we're a family. A wave of cheers erupted around them, energized by Max's words. The room pulsed with determination. Suddenly, whispers of support turned into a roar. The mayor, pressured by the crowd's fervor, raised his hands in a plea for silence, but it was clear the momentum had shifted. Ethan saw the resolve solidify in every face around him. The fight was just beginning. As the meeting continued, Ethan scribbled down every detail, his heart pounding in sync with the shared heartbeat of the crowd. Yet deep down, a question gnawed at him, relentless like a bad memory. What devastating secret was hidden in those plans? What would truly be lost? The air crackled with uncertainty as they continued, and Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that something much darker loomed just beyond their fight. What if they discovered the truth, only to find it too late? Ethan's thoughts raced as the meetings droned on. He glanced around the room, witnessing the sparks of fervor igniting connections among neighbors. Each voice seemed to amplify the courage he didn't know he had. And yet, as cheers erupted, the shadow of doubt loomed larger. Were they truly prepared for what lay ahead? What if they lost everything? Let us channel this energy into action, Max cried, climbing atop a chair, his youthful presence radiating confidence. We need to organize. We don't just talk, we act. The crowd erupted into sporadic applause, but eyes darted to Ethan. They looked to him for guidance, the man in the front who had called them together. Panic coursed through him. They needed more than enthusiasm. They needed a plan. He needed a plan. Max is right, Ethan started cautiously, raising a tone to capture attention. We need to organize a team. Start an online petition, hit social media, gather more supporters. Driven by the urgency of his voice, a small group at the back began to jot down where they could gather the following day. Then came murmurs of protests, potential rallies, making banners and circulating flyers. Ideas flowed, charging the atmosphere until it was electric. Yet, as excitement thrived, Ethan's stomach churned with unease. It wasn't only about gathering support. He had a nagging feeling that digging deeper into the developers' plans would unveil something horrifying. What were they hiding? Why the rush? During a moment's reprieve, he leaned close to Max. You know we can't just fight blindly, right? He said, searching Max's eyes for understanding. There are real-world consequences. If we do this wrong, we could lose everything. Max's fierce expression softened and he nodded. I get it, Ethan. But if we don't try, then what? We let them take it all without a fight? The idealistic fire in Max's eyes transformed into something deeper, determination forged by a drive to protect that which mattered most. Ethan sighed, feeling torn. The battle for their homes was more profound than he once realized. It wasn't just about buildings. It was about a heritage, the stories that mingled with their walls. Max's voice resounded in his head, echoing the spirit of community he had long cherished. They were family, and families protected one another. As discussions turned into plans, they agreed to meet at the park the next day to strategize their protest. All their energy culminated in determination that could light fires. But even as laughter floated through the air and plans took shape, an unsettling thought nagged at Ethan's mind. What if they found the truth? Would it change everything? Or would it shatter the very essence of their fight? The meeting finally wound down. Ethan stepped outside into the cool evening air, the sky darkening as he absorbed the weight of the evening. The thrill of hope and camaraderie was all around him, but the specter of that unknown secret still clung to him. As he drove home, he couldn't rid himself of the feeling that the real battle was about to unfold. That night, as he tucked Max into bed, Ethan leaned down, brushing hair from his son's forehead. "Promise me you'll stay safe. No heroics." Max grinned sleepily but nodded, sensing something deeper in his father's voice. There was a bond of trust and understanding that this fight was more than just territory. It was a fight for their lives, their memories. Little did Ethan know as he left the room a phone call awaited him. A call that would change everything. Would the truth they uncovered unite them further, or pull them apart at the seams? Ethan's phone buzzed sharply, slicing through the calm of the evening, echoing against the quiet walls of their home. He hesitated, staring at the screen. It was an unknown number, but something told him he needed to answer. "Hello?" he said cautiously. A raspy voice came through, tinged with urgency. "Ethan, you need to leave where you are. It's not safe." "Who is this?" he asked, heart thumping. The world around him blurred into a haze of confusion and dread. "The man in charge, he's making moves you don't know about. You need to leave now. Take your son and get out." Ethan shoved the phone closer to his ear, desperation clawing at him. "What are you talking about? Why should I trust you?" "Trust me or not, but you'll regret it if you stick around," the voice warned. "Your community is at risk. They'll do anything to silence you." Before Ethan could respond, the line went dead. His pulse raced, panic seeping into his bones. Glancing back at Max's sleepy face, he wanted so badly to keep the boy safe, to preserve the innocence of his world. But a gnawing fear twisted in his gut. He paced the living room, biting his nails, weighing the warning against the reality he knew. Could it be true? The developer's plans, the fervor of the meeting, it was all moving too quickly. He couldn't shake the unease or the nagging feeling that they were being watched. Seconds turned into minutes. The shadows in the house felt thicker, each creak of the floorboards signaling a possible threat. Ethan let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding, forcing himself to think clearly. "Ethan?" Max's sleepy voice called from the hallway, and Ethan's heart sank. He didn't want to scare him, but he couldn't lie either. "Max, buddy, you need to get dressed. We're going for a drive," he said, trying to keep his tone steady. "What? Now? It's late. Just trust me." Max rubbed his eyes, the excitement of the day's planning fading into confusion. As he dressed, Ethan grabbed their bag, stuffing in essentials. A change of clothes, some snacks, and Max's favorite book, the small comforts that represented home. "Why can't we just stay here?" Max asked, feeling the tension in the air. But I think there's danger lurking around." Max frowned, trusting his father, but uncertainty gnawed at his spirit. Outside, the night sky enveloped them in its velvet embrace. Ethan's heart raced as he drove, dodging familiar streets. Every passerby, every shadow felt like potential risk. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were being followed, that eyes were peeling away at the layers of their small sanctuary. "Where are we going?" Max asked, looking out the window at the passing lampposts. "Just a safe place for now," Ethan replied, glancing in the rearview mirror, expecting to see something, a shadow, a glimmer of headlights. The silence in the car grew thick with tension. Ethan's mind raced with possibilities, replaying the warning in his head. What had they stumbled upon that warranted such urgency? Were they truly prepared to lose everything? As they approached a secluded area near the park where the community planned to gather, Ethan's phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. His heart faltered as he answered, but the air filled with static and then silence. Suddenly, the sound of tires screeching jolted him back to reality. "Ethan!" Max shouted, eyes wide in fear. Ethan slammed on the brakes. In the distance, near their home, headlights blared ominously. The feeling of dread coiled tighter around him. They had to find answers, but at what cost? "Get down!" Ethan yelled, heart pounding as figures emerged from the shadows. What lay just ahead could shatter their small world forever. Ethan's instincts kicked in. needing to protect his son more than ever. But as he prepared to drive away, a new message flashed on his phone. A grainy photo loaded, a familiar figure entwined with darkness, next to a sign the developer's logo. Who was the traitor among them? Ethan's hands tightened on the wheel, as he faced the choice between fleeing or fighting. The truth was tantalizingly close, but so was danger. I need to know, he murmured, revving the engine as Max gripped his seat. What awaited them next could either bring them together or tear everything apart. Ethan's heart thundered as he gripped the wheel, the grainy image on his phone still flashing in his mind. His instincts screamed at him to drive away, yet he couldn't tear his eyes from the screen. The familiar face twisted around the developer's logo brought memories rushing back, smiling at community meetings, discussing plans to better their neighborhood. But now, twisted with shadows, it felt like betrayal. Daddy, what is happening? Max's innocent voice penetrated his thoughts, snapping him back to the present. The concern in his son's eyes hurt so much. Ethan turned and forced a smile, but the tremor was evident. Just some bad people, Max. We're gonna be okay though. But were they? He pulled onto a darker side road, scanning both sides for any signs of life or danger. Every tree loomed like a specter against the night sky, the air thick with the scent of pine and fear. Can we go home? Max asked, voice wavering. I don't like this. Ethan swallowed hard. He wished they were back in their cozy living room, the reassuring sounds of their home around them instead of this creeping dread. Soon. Promise. Just then the headlights reappeared in the rearview mirror, glaring bright. Car was tailing them. A jolt of adrenaline surged through Ethan as he pushed down on the accelerator. Faster, Dad! Max shouted, his voice edged with panic. Ethan's mind raced as he calculated their options. He could either risk a confrontation or find a way to lose the car behind them. Hold on tight, Ethan shouted, weaving into the next alleyway. Max leaned in, clutching his seatbelt, eyes wide with fear yet burning with his father's determination. The streets whizzed past, shadows of their lives flickering by, memories of laughter, school drop-offs, bedtime stories. Why are they chasing us? Max asked. I don't know, buddy, but I'm gonna figure it out. Despite the fear gripping his heart, Ethan felt a simmer of resolve settle. He had to protect his son no matter what it took. Turning onto a deserted road leading toward the woods, the headlights behind them dipped momentarily, confusion playing into their advantage. Can we stop now? Max pleaded, little boy fear cracking through. Just a little more, okay? I need to find somewhere safe. Each word he spoke felt heavy, like a promise he had to keep. No threats would take his son away. As they maneuvered among the trees, Ethan finally spotted an old cabin, cloaked in darkness but standing firm. It looked abandoned, and yet it beckoned with a sense of refuge. There. He pulled in quickly, leaving the car running as they tumbled out. Quick, he urged, ushering Max inside. The air smelled musty, hinting at decades gone by. But Ethan's eyes scanned the surroundings for anything useful, anything that could help them understand the threat looming over their heads. Is it safe? Max whispered, his small frame shaken. For now, Ethan said, locking the door. We need to figure out what's really going on. As he searched for a flashlight, he felt a chill breeze snake through the cracks. Outside, the world was eerily quiet, but in that silence something felt wrong. Ethan pulled out his phone again, feeling compelled to examine the photo more closely. As he zoomed in, he noticed a detail he hadn't caught before: another figure shadowed behind the familiar face. A hint of recognition sparked. Who are you really, James? He muttered, feeling the weight of the name suddenly heavy on his heart. It was time to confront the truth. They were no longer just dealing with a faceless threat. There was someone from within their circle who was involved. Dad? Max's soft voice broke his focus. Ethan turned, the fear in his son's gaze reigniting his urgency. We need to know who we can trust, he said, nodding slowly, plotting his next move. But as he contemplated their options, a noise erupted outside, the distinctive crunch of footsteps on gravel. Someone was there. Ethan's blood ran cold. Who was it? Were they friends or foes? Stay close, Max, he whispered, tension filling the air like electricity. He needed a plan, and fast, as the night threatened to swallow them whole. Would they uncover the truth in time? Or would the shadows claim them? Ethan's breaths came in quick, shallow gasps as he turned his attention back to the door. Each creak of the floorboards outside felt like thunder in the silence of the cabin. A chill slithered down his spine. He held tight to the flashlight, wishing desperately for the comfort of daylight to drown out the impending darkness. "Do you hear that?" he whispered to Max, crouching low beside him. The boy nodded, eyes wide, clinging to his father as if he were a lifeline. They couldn't just wait and see who it was. The mysteries lurking outside could easily turn dangerous. Peering through a dusty window, Ethan squinted to catch any glimpse of the shadow. The silhouette moved slowly, deliberately. Panic flared in him like wildfire. It wasn't just anyone. It looked too familiar from the silhouette alone. "It's James," Ethan breathed. The name sank heavy in his stomach, each syllable carrying the weight of betrayal. "What do we do, Dad?" Max's voice trembled. "Stay quiet," Ethan replied, his mind racing. What could James want? Was he trying to help or hurt them? There was no way of knowing, but Ethan had to protect Max. He dropped the flashlight, sending it rolling across the wooden floor with a gentle clatter. In a rush, he picked up a nearby table leg, brandishing it like a weapon. A tiny part of him was terrified, but another part, a protective, fierce part, could feel the adrenaline surging in his veins. "Shua, stay hidden," he murmured, motioning Max to crawl behind an old sofa. They pressed themselves into the shadows, hearts pounding like war drums. As James's footsteps drew nearer, Ethan's resolve stiffened. The man was a friend, once a trusted neighbor, always smiling at the barbecues on lazy Sundays. But now the very image of betrayal loomed over them like a thick fog. What if he's not alone? Ethan muttered under his breath. Outside, James knocked, the sound sharp against the stillness. "Ethan, I know you're in there. I need to talk to you." Ethan's pulse quickened. Talk? About what? The terror gripping him was palpable, tightening around his throat like a noose. "Dad, I don't like this," Max whined, fear creeping into his voice. "Me neither. But we have to see what he wants," Ethan replied, trying to sound brave. "Breathe easy, buddy." Steeling himself, Ethan took a tentative step toward the door. The weight of his son's eyes upon him was a mix of trust and fear. He hesitated, glancing back at Max, whose face was pale and solemn. "Ethan, please. They're after you. You need to get out," James shouted, desperation bleeding into his tone. Ethan's heart sank. "Who's after us?" he called back, his voice firm yet trembling. "Let me in. I can explain." A war raged in Ethan's mind. Could he trust James? Could a man he once called a friend genuinely mean them no harm? But every instinct told him that he had to protect Max first. He took a breath, preparing for confrontation. "Max, stay behind me," he whispered, and looked again to the door. "If he tries anything, I want you to run, okay?" Max nodded, his small frame taut with worry. "Get ready, buddy," Ethan murmured, heart hammering in his chest, when suddenly a loud bang echoed from the back of the cabin, startling both of them. Ethan felt the blood drain from his face. It wasn't just James knocking on the door anymore, there were others. "Ethan, they're here." "You have to." Before James could finish his sentence, the door creaked open. Time slowed as Ethan gripped the table leg tighter, and the darkness swirled around them, thickening with every breath. This was it. Would he face the figures behind the door? Or would he dive into the chaos outside, carrying his son into the unknown? "Run, Max. Now." In that moment of chaos, one undeniable truth sank into Ethan's heart. Everything he thought he knew had shattered. Would they escape the approaching shadows? The next chapter of their harrowing journey began at this very crossroads, with trust hanging on a precarious edge. Would they fight together? Or was this about to tear them apart? Ethan's heart raced as he saw the door swing open, light flooding in from the outside. But the glow only revealed more shadows creeping into the cabin, figures he couldn't make out. He had to act fast. "Go, Max," he hissed again, urgency slicing through the fog of his fear. He shoved his son gently towards the small window they had peered through earlier. "Climb. I'll follow you." Max hesitated, those wide, terrified eyes searching Ethan's face for assurance. "What about you, Dad?" he whispered, quaking. "I'll be right behind you, I promise," he urged, pushing Max securely towards the window frame. But just as Max scrambled up, the door frame creaked ominously with the weight of more bodies pushing in. "Ethan, James shouted, stepping into the threshold. But he wasn't alone. The outlines of two shadowy figures loomed behind him. Ethan's grip on the table leg turned white-knuckled. Could James really be trying to help? Get away from him! Ethan shouted, adrenaline washing over him like ice water. Ethan, please listen. You need to trust me. James replied, lifting his hands in a gesture of peace, but the panicked look in his eyes made Ethan's blood run cold. The strangers behind James were closing in with silent purpose. Climb, climb, Ethan urged, his voice cutting through the chaos. Max paused just enough to glance back. A mix of uncertainty and fear etched on his small face, and then he heard a low growl, not from any animal but from the shadows. It was a sound that sent a tremor right through him, ratcheting up the panic in his chest. The figures were not just there to talk. Max now! He shouted, the fear giving way to a desperate kind of courage. With trembling hands, Max clambered through the window, disappearing into the night outside. Ethan, we can't waste time, James yelled, and just as the words left his mouth, the cabin shook with a fierce force, rattling the very foundation beneath them. Before Ethan could process this new threat, he recognized the flicker of movement behind James. With a speed he didn't know he possessed, Ethan lunged forward, pushing James out of the way. The two other figures rushed into the cabin, their intentions clear. Panic surged as Ethan fought to keep them at bay. He swung the table leg, striking one figure hard against the shoulder. It was like swinging at a brick wall, but it halted the attacker for a moment. Ethan! James shouted, fear morphing into something that felt like unity, for one brief moment. Let me help you. Help! You've betrayed me. Ethan shot back as he pushed against the second figure, their hands reaching for him. Trust me! James roared, charging forward, and with a surprising burst of strength, he shoved Ethan towards the window. Get out! James yelled fiercely, with terror and desperation mingling in his heart. Ethan dashed to the window. The sounds of chaos erupted behind him, the shouts and scuffles, wood splintering under force. Ethan scrambled out, tumbling into the cool night air. He landed hard but was on his feet in an instant, scanning the darkness for Max. The boy stood just a few feet away, watching wide-eyed. Where's James? Max whimpered, his voice cracking. He's coming. Ethan lied, pushing down his dread. He gathered Max close, wanting to shield him from what might come. In the night, they were alone, two shadows against the backdrop of the towering trees. Ethan scanned the woods, his heart racing for the safety of their escape. Dad, what do we do now? Max asked, his small body pressed tightly against Ethan. But before Ethan could answer, a distant crash echoed behind them, a reminder that their ordeal was far from over. Were they truly free? Or had they just jumped from one nightmare into another? As the shadows lurked closer, Ethan knew the answer was somewhere beneath the surface, a revelation waiting to claw its way to the light. What betrayal was waiting to unfold in this darkened forest? Ethan's heart pounded in his chest, a mix of fear and urgency flooding through him. He tightened his grip on Max, pulling him closer, needing to feel his warmth amidst the growing cold of the night. We have to move, he whispered, forcing his voice to remain steady. They couldn't linger. Not with whatever was behind them. Where, Dad? Max looked up at him, brow furrowed, eyes wide with uncertainty. The boy was never this scared, and every tremble of his small body made Ethan's own insides twist tighter with dread. Anywhere away from here. Just follow me. He darted into the dense brush, moving as silently as he could. The trees loomed over them like towering sentinels, their dark branches weaving an almost impenetrable cloak of shadows. He prayed that the darkness would offer them protection, even as it felt suffocating. They lost the sounds of the chaos behind them, yet a quiet, oppressive stillness took its place. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig echoed like a thunderclap in Ethan's ears. He kept glancing back, half expecting to see figures emerging from the shadows, poised to snatch them away. Do you think they'll come after us? Max asked, his voice barely a whisper as they maneuvered through the thicket. Ethan hesitated, a part of him wanting to shield his son from the truth, to tell him everything would be fine. But he couldn't lie, not now. I don't know, buddy. Just keep close. They stumbled upon a narrow path, overgrown and barely visible in the nighttime gloom. This way, Ethan urged. leading them further into the unfamiliar territory. His heart almost burst at the thought of what James had done, that he had put them in this danger. That betrayal left a bitter taste in his mouth. For years, he had trusted James, viewing him almost as family. And yet here he was, running from the very man he had once relied on. As they crept along the path, the wind howled through the trees, carrying an unsettling sound, a low growl, more menacing than before, as if the shadows themselves were stalking them. The thought sent a wave of ice through Ethan's veins. "Stay silent, Max." He glanced down, meeting his son's scared gaze. He said it more for himself. He needed to believe they could escape this nightmare. "Dad," Max's voice trembled, breaking the silence. What if we never get away?" The question struck Ethan like a punch to the gut. He couldn't let himself think like that. "We will. We just have to keep moving." But inside, doubt gnawed at him. Could they truly escape? The muscles in his legs burned as adrenaline coursed through him, suffocating all rational thought. They reached a small clearing, moonlight spilling down like a blessing. Ethan paused, hoping to catch his breath. But the moment was short-lived. "Look," Max pointed, his voice echoing excitement. "There's a house." Ethan squinted through the shadows, fingers tightening around Max's wrist. It appeared old and run down, its windows dark hollows where secrets lay hidden. Should they risk it? But the growling that emanated from behind them didn't give them much choice. "Let us go," he decided, urgency overpowering his instinct to investigate. Together they dashed toward the house, their footsteps swift and soft against the damp ground as they approached. Ethan's heart raced not only with fear but now with another layer of hope, a solace that perhaps this refuge might keep them safe for a moment. But just as they reached the door, it creaked open. "Who goes there?" An unfamiliar voice boomed from within, echoing in the stillness of the night. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. "We need help," he shouted instinctively, pushing Max behind him, standing protectively in front of his son. And then he heard the growl again, this time much closer. The shadows in the trees seemed to swell and swirl, and the figures lurking within loomed larger than ever before. "Please," Ethan begged, desperation spilling out. "We can't go back." The figure in the doorway shifted, and as it stepped into the moonlight, Ethan's blood turned to ice. The truth of who it was hit him like a tidal wave, shattering what little hope he had left. He knew now, what came next could change everything. Would this stranger offer them aid, or would they be shackled to yet another betrayal? "Get inside," the figure commanded, and Ethan hesitated, eyes darting between the ominous encroaching shadows and the sudden safety that beckoned. With his son at his side, he had to decide. Trust the unknown or face the monsters of their past. Whatever happened next would shape their destiny forever. Ethan's heartbeat thundered in his ears, drowning out everything else as he stood frozen at the threshold of the house. The figure in the doorway, a tall man with a familiar face, grime and shadows cast across his features, was someone Ethan had thought he would never see again. "Ben," he whispered, disbelief mingling with the fear that flooded his chest. His old friend, the man who had risked everything for him, only to disappear years ago. Did he really have any choice but to trust the only familiar face in a sea of danger? "Get inside. Now," Ben repeated, his voice more urgent this time. The growls behind them grew louder, closer. Ethan took a breath, half a heartbeat away from making a decision that could change their lives forever. He pushed Max further behind him, creating a shield between his son and the shadows closing in around them. "Dad?" Max's voice quivered, full of uncertainty. "Trust me, Max. Please." Ethan's gaze darted between the man and the encroaching darkness. The decision felt heavy, but fear of the unknown was nothing compared to the real danger lurking just behind them. He grabbed Max's hand tightly and stepped inside. The door slammed shut behind them, cutting off the chill of the night. The inside of the house was dimly lit, remnants of furniture scattered, dust motes dancing in the thin beams of light. It was as if time had frozen here, untouched by the chaos outside. "What happened out there?" Ben asked, his voice low yet urgent as he turned to them. Ethan could see a flicker of concern etched on his features, a reminder of their past friendship. They are coming for us." "I thought," Ethan swallowed hard, forcing back a tide of emotions. "I thought I lost you for good." Ben held his gaze steady. "You need to know the truth about what is happening. James is not the man you think he is. There's a reason they're after you. Ethan's blood ran cold at the mention of James. The last time he'd seen his best friend had been in betrayal, when James had used his trust to orchestrate a situation he could never predict. He had thought leaving that life behind would save them. But this was a fracture deeper than anything Ethan could have imagined. What do you mean? What truth? Ethan demanded, tension threading through his voice. They're hunting you and your son because of what you both possess, Ben said, his eyes shifting toward Max, who stood close, still confused. You, Ethan, you have a power that's tied to your family's lineage, something dangerous enough that they will stop at nothing to get it. Ethan felt the floor beneath him shift. Power? A lineage? It felt absurd. Yet in the pit of his stomach, he knew the world he thought he understood was unraveling with every breath. You're telling me I'm special? That Max is special? Not just special, valuable, Ben said, urgency dancing around his words. And we don't have long. They'll find you if we don't move. Panic surged in Ethan's chest. Not only was he running for their lives, but now he had learned his son was valuable to a group that had sent them fleeing in the first place. We can't stay here, he said, looking around the cramped entryway as if the walls were closing in. Every moment counts, Ben urged, his forehead creasing with the weight of their situation. I have a plan, but you have to trust me. Ethan opened his mouth to protest but found the words were stuck. His eyes landed on Max, whose small form shivered, not just from the cold, but from fear and confusion. Okay, Ethan finally managed, heart pounding with force as he considered what this might mean. What do we do? Follow me, Ben instructed, leading them deeper into the house, away from the front door. Each step echoed like a countdown. Just as they reached a narrow staircase, the low growl rumbled again not far behind them this time. Something heavy slammed against the door. Ethan clenched Max's arm to ground himself. Daddy, I'm scared, Max whispered, and the weight of his son's fear crashed against Ethan like a wave. I know, buddy. Just breathe, he whispered back, though his own heart raced with everything they stood to lose. Go now, Ben urged as the door splintered from the force of a heavy blow. Ethan's instinct kicked in as he nodded once and followed Ben into the darkness of the staircase, his mind racing with confusion and fear. The shadows of the past had come haunting again, and this time there was no turning back. They were in too deep, teetering on the edge of unknown horrors, and every fearful heartbeat screamed one question. Would they survive to uncover the secrets that would change everything? Ethan's breath came in quick, shallow bursts as they descended into the unknown, the wood creaking beneath their weight. Cold air rushed past them, as if the house itself breathed like a living entity, urging them onward. Each step seemed to echo in his mind, a grim reminder of their precarious situation. To shield Max, Ethan wrapped an arm around the boy's shoulders, trying to project calmness while inside. Worry wrangled with an inkling of hope. Ben, where are we going? Ethan whispered, barely keeping his voice steady. The urgency in the air was palpable, every minute weighed down by the threat following them. To a safe room, Ben replied, determination filling his tone. It's a place only a few know about. We can figure out our next move there. As they reached the bottom, Ben paused for a moment, glancing back toward the staircase as another powerful thud reverberated against the door above. Come on, Ben urged, moving quickly through a dim corridor with walls that seemed to absorb the light. Ethan could feel adrenaline electrifying his veins. The realization that they had a power within them had begun to simmer on the back burner of his mind. Max leaned closer, whispering, "What kind of power, Dad?" His small voice quivered with innocence, unaware of the weight of the truth surrounding them. "I don't know yet," Ethan admitted softly, glancing at Ben for clarity. "But we'll figure it out, I promise." As they rounded a corner, Ben stopped suddenly in front of a door reinforced with steel hinges. He pressed a hand against the solid surface, the worry etched across his face, a mirror of Ethan's own concerns. "Stay close," Ben warned, pushing the door open and ushering them inside. The room was small, cluttered with old equipment and dusty shelves lined with mysterious artifacts that glimmered in the low light. Ethan's eyes flickered across the room, lingering on trinkets from lives long past, an old compass, a threadbare flag, and stacks of yellowed papers covered in dense writing. "What is this place?" Ethan asked, both fascinated and apprehensive. "It's a meeting point for those who know the truth," Ben replied and glanced back at the door, his eyes narrowing with tension. This is where we gather information and plan our next steps. It's safe for now. Safe? Max's eyes widened, searching for reassurance. Are we truly safe? For now, yes, Ben said, though his eyes held a shadow of doubt. But we need to act quickly. They will come. Ethan turned to Max, wrapping a protective arm around him, filling with a mix of sadness and pride. Listen, buddy. We're doing this together. Whatever happens, you're not alone. Their eyes locked, and Ethan could see the flicker of trust in his son's gaze, a reassuring warmth against the cold uncertainties that surrounded them. Suddenly, Ben lit a lantern, casting flickering shadows against the damp concrete walls. Let us figure out what we're dealing with, Ben said, spreading old files across a table cluttered with papers. These documents detail the plans of the developer. They're not after just property, there's something sinister at play. Ethan took a step closer, the air thick with anticipation. He felt as if they were on the brink of unearthing something monumental, something that could change everything. Ben opened a file, revealing blueprints sprawled across the table. The developers are not just building luxury homes. They're constructing something with a deeper purpose, something that exploits the energy we carry. And that's why you both are targets. Energy? Max asked, his youthful curiosity piercing through the tension. The energy from your family's lineage, Ben explained, avoiding Ethan's gaze for a moment. There are threads of ancient power tied to your bloodline, Ethan. If they harness it, they'll wield unimaginable control. Ethan felt a chill dance down his spine, grasping the breadth of their fight. Why didn't you warn me sooner? He demanded, frustration the only thing keeping panic at bay. I didn't know for sure, Ben replied solemnly. But I've been watching. I didn't want to jeopardize you, but now it's too late for that. Before Ethan could respond, the sound of boots broke through the tension, marching down the corridor. The door shook against a heavy force, sending adrenaline racing through them. They're here, Ben hissed, shoving the blueprints aside as they darted towards the back of the room. Where do we go? Max whimpered, urgency turning his gaze frantic. There's an escape tunnel, Ben shouted, leading them to a small door hidden behind a stack of shelves. Ethan's heart hammered as he pushed Max ahead, and with a swift motion, they slipped inside the narrow passage. As they maneuvered through the cramped tunnel, darkness danced around them, thick and encroaching. The faint sound of their pursuers echoed, growing louder and more assertive. Stay quiet, Ethan reminded, his own breath coming out heavily as fear clawed at him. Max looked up, his face pale yet determined, little more than a spark of resilience in a world now teetering at the brink. After what felt like an eternity, the tunnel opened up to the other side, the moonlight spilling into view. They stumbled out and into a rush of chilly night air, their surroundings a foreign wilderness. Ethan held onto Max's hand firmly as they crept into the shadows of the trees, barely in the cover of the moonlight. Where do we go now? Max asked, his voice barely above a whisper, trembling with fear yet ignited with courage. Somewhere far away, Ethan replied, furrowing his brow. Somewhere they can't find us. He rarely felt so lost, but his heart surged with determination. They would fight against whatever came next, for their home, for their family, and for the future they would reclaim. As they moved into the quiet embrace of the trees, Ethan quickly realized that their love was the real power tying them together, forging an unbreakable bond amidst the chaos. They would face whatever battles lay ahead, renewed by the knowledge that bloodlines could be strong, but love was what would truly lead them through the darkness. And somewhere, in the heart of the woods, Ethan vowed to find a way not just to uncover the truth but to protect what mattered most. They would not lose this fight together, they would rise. As they vanished into the night, Ethan felt a flicker of hope ignite within him, guiding them into their uncertain future. Now it was time to strap in and take action, uncover the truth, unite their community and fight for their home. For Ethan, Max, and everyone they loved, the time for courage had arrived, and the battles before them would only make their journey that much sweeter. Don't wait any longer. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to stay connected and never miss another exclusive story. Hit that like button now to feed the algorithm and help others discover this journey. Leave your comments about the ending below, your thoughts matter. And lastly, don't wait not even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear this transformation. Let us continue this adventure together.